Without a doubt, this is 99.3 Nigeria Info. Development Report is the program. And today on the program, we're looking at lessons from fact-checking media coverage of the 2019 Nigerian elections. My guest on the program this beautiful Friday, Mayowa, Tijani, fact-checking journalist at AFP. I know that as a fact-checking journalist, you have a lot of things that you have to look at very, with cursory eyes, with detailed attention and all of that. So your general assessment, let's have your perspective in terms of assessments.
Okay, thank you. I covered 2011 election, 2015 and 2019.
All right.
And so for me, I can say clearly that this particular election was the most sophisticated election in recent history. Even though it felt like 2015 was more competitive, but this time around, a lot of people were interested in what is happening, who is saying what, how are they saying it, what medium are they using. So for the first time in 2018, we actually had a live presidential debate fact check. That as the candidates were saying A, you check it out. They were saying this, so everybody was basically put on their toes. You couldn't just come out and throw figures. And of course, we saw the people who threw figures around and how there was immediate social media backlash. So I think this time around, the fact-checking environment is getting more active.
So I'd like you to tell us the things that AFP actually fact-checked during the elections, and now you would also, put it side by side those areas that are in the interiors that may actually have been difficult, yet you were able to also get something out of it and actually do a fact-checking of that.
Okay, we had, of course, it was like a marathon at that point of the year. We had a particular 24 hours before the election. There was this video making rounds on Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, particularly, of President Donald Trump of the U.S. endorsing Atiku, and the video was so good that if you just watched it generally, you'll be like, oh, this actually happened. In fact, I had to go over the video, of course, having a curious mind, going over the video again and again, it was clear to me that this did not happen. But sharing it with unsuspecting Nigerians, in fact, on Facebook, we had over 100,000 people who had already shared it within 24 hours. So one of the things we did was to find out where the original video was from. What it was particularly, the video was from 2016, but they did some manipulation to show that Trump actually endorsed that, which of course did not happen. So we were able to show the people that did not happen, and of course, based on our partnership with Facebook too, we were able to reduce the traffic, showing people that this particular video has been doctored. And of course, there was also another situation where, so during the election in Lagos, there was a situation in Oshodi, Isolo, where
I remember that 100%. We'll report that from here.
Some persons immediately took pictures from South Africa of communal clash and started saying that this was Igbos killing Yorubas in Lagos. And of course, it felt like one of the roads in Isolo. But having a closer look, comparing it with Google Images, having a simple reverse image search, and of course looking at that particular location in South Africa and the picture, we're able to figure out that this was not in Oshodi, and of course we're able to put out that.
If you're talking about the interior areas where you really have to do a lot of work, how do you fact check, considering the risk in those areas? Because oftentimes the job appears relatively easy in city centers, but in the interiors it's much more challenging.
Okay, so one of the things we found, of course, in the course of all this work, is that in the interior region, the people believe more in the opinion leaders.
Okay.
So the easier way to get things done was to get information down to those opinion leaders, who then pass it on to people within those regions. So we find that in the urban centers, it is difficult to convince a decided voter based on one video or picture on Facebook or Instagram or something. But in those regions, once somebody sees something and it does not align with their belief, so let me give an example. There was news going around that the LGBT community had endorsed Atiku. And of course, for someone in an interior region who feels that that is against his belief, he immediately switched off. Even if he was going to vote for Atiku before, there's a change. But with fact check, getting to those opinion leaders, they are able to correct
such a position. Well, that's interesting. I'm coming back to you right now. I'm coming to you, Mayowa. Fact checking can be a dangerous venture. You're going to be stepping on toes right here. All right, let's see. For the 2019 elections, we saw social media as a weapon. You know, the dimensions are really changing. One used to think things like cutlasses and machetes could work, but social media itself can actually cut and break as glass being broken into smithereens. What's the threat? I'm coming to you, Mayowa. Social media, what are the threats of the use of social media to democracy?
I'm a very strong defender of freedom of speech. But in this particular election, some of the things I saw...
Do you defend reckless speech?
Exactly. So, which is where all of that comes in. So I understand that during these particular elections, there were what they called situation rooms for both the two big parties. That their duty basically was to throw out fake news on Twitter and Facebook and all other sources that they had. An example was a particular party was putting out information that Leah Sharibu, the girl who is still with Boko Haram, had been killed, and so that went all over, and there were a lot of people saying, she's been killed, no, she's not been, and all that. It was cooked and delivered from one particular party, and a lot of people took it in. But looking at that, it just does not make sense to put out that kind of information for political interest. But people still do. Some, on the other hand, would just decide that, okay, there is a little bit of truth in something. Okay, so an example we saw was that the European mission was complaining about a particular issue in River State. So they took the complaint of the EU, then added some other things. Exactly. So by the time it came out, it's true, the EU said this part,
tasty and
but then did they say this part? So for many people who are not suspecting, you see that credible media houses had reported what the EU said, and then with the pepper and salt, you then say, wow, so they said this much. That means those media houses were putting things down, you know? So those are some of the issues, and it can go a long way in pushing Nigeria. Nigeria is, there's a lot of religious and ethnic divides.
All right, let me quickly ask you in 30 seconds, Mayowa, how do we mitigate the risk of social media? Quickly, please.
I think it's a very delicate subject. It has to do with curbing misinformation without touching freedom of speech. So it's like stopping the freedom of reckless speech, like you said, without tampering with the freedom of speech. So as humans, for example, one of the things I found is that we've had misinformation crisis in Nigeria long before social media. All right. So it's a human problem that needs to be solved by humans.
So that means people must get proper education before they start using their social media, because lack of proper learning. If you say education, they want to confine it to schools, but lack of proper learning and your civility and humanity should actually be tidied up. Let me say a big thank you to you, the listener, for being part of the program. I've been speaking with Mayowa Tijani, fact-checking journalist at AFP.